going on, guys? So today we're going over the top tools you're going to need to maintain your EDC. So first off, I'm going to go with the most important thing you're going to need to actually maintain: oil. So for me, I'm just grabbing a basic can of Remington Rem oil, and this is going to be perfect for whether you're using it for firearm maintenance or for lubing up your knives. So some guys will say they want to use a specific oil for the knife, whether it be Benchmade's Blue Lube or something that's going to be a little more food safe if that is going to be used on food. For me, that's not really the case with most of my carry knives, so this stuff's perfect. Works great for knives, works great for guns, doesn't matter. So that's going to be the first thing that's probably the most used for everyone watching this video. Next up is going to be a basic set of Torx Bits as well as Allen. And this one's going to be a little bit interesting depending on how you want to go about it, because this can get fairly large of a set fairly quickly. And one of the big things you need to pay attention to is, does the set you're buying fit the tools and EDC gear that you're trying to work on? So one of the most tempting things a lot of guys watching this probably already own or may be looking at is the $5 set of Allen and hex keys in the little drivers like this from Harbor Freight for $5. Now, this is tempting, but I recommend against it for most people that are using this to work on knives. And the reason being is, if you look through the smallest ones here, the second smallest one will fit the pivot screw on a Benchmade. However, if you look at all the other screws on here, such as the scale screws or even the really small ones where you have your belt clip, even the smallest one on here are too big. So they will not fit there, so they're pretty much useless in this context. So they're cheap, they'll work in certain situations, but this is probably not one of them. So what you're probably going to have to go with is more of a precision set, something like this Craftsman set right here, where you do have extremely small drivers that will actually fit in these small screws and will actually allow you to do some maintenance on your knives. Now, this is going to be good if you want to be able to take it apart, switch out belt clips, replace things that break, whatever it may be. You need to be able to take your knives apart, your guns apart, and do everything else, and you're going to tend to need a lot of Torx bits. Some companies will use flatheads, Phillips, some places will even use old Allen keys. So you kind of have to have a mix of all of the above, hence why we have the full set of Allens here. But again, even this one, it only goes down to 1.5 mil, and that may be a bit large depending on the knife you own. So make sure you're looking at what the sizes you need for the knives you're working on and buy accordingly. Now, this one's going to be a little bit interesting and some people will disagree with, but I'm going to say some form of compressed air. Now, this one's going to be just a compressed air chuck for a compressor that allows you to blow out any of the dust that's going to accumulate inside the knife here. As you can see, I definitely need to clean that one out. It's been a while. Now, I'm not expecting most people watching this video are going to have a shop with a good size air compressor to even have this. So the other option you have is one of those little aerosol cans similar to the Rem oil for just compressed air. And they're generally sold in the computer sections at whether it be Walmart, Target, or anywhere else. But those little cans of compressed air are more than fine for cleaning out your knives, and they'll work great for that. Next up, we have something really simple that most of you probably already have: spare batteries. Because the thing is, you will burn through a lot of batteries with your EDC items, especially the flashlights. And generally speaking, if you're carrying anything other than a standard AA, AAA, if you have the CR123s, or maybe using rechargeable 18650s or rechargeable CR123s, you're going to want to make sure you have some backups from replacements. And if you do have the option of a dual fuel flashlight that has a option to run rechargeables or disposable batteries, it's great to have a few backup disposables in addition to your rechargeables. Next up, we have screwdrivers. Now, there's a few ways you go in this. Again, you don't need to go top of the line. You don't necessarily need to go Snap-on, or in this case, Klein. This is going to be nice if you want to have some better quality tools that are going to last you the rest of your life. Those are a great way to go. If, however, you're on a more tight budget and you want to go a little cheaper, I got this literally for free at Harbor Freight. Just use one of the coupons. They do them all the time. Granted, they have been switching out to, you can get these for like $1 or something like that. But at the end of the day, for basic maintenance use on a knife and gun, this will do most tasks you want. And it is the dual-sided option, so you have the large and the small, Phillips and flathead, and they're $1. Versus these guys, you're looking $10 a screwdriver in most cases at Home Depot. Now, a lot of things I'm bringing up here are separate tools the way I'm presenting them. However, you have the option to go very simple and combine all of this into one for most of these things. with a Leatherman or similar style multi-tool. Now, the reason I say that, and for a lot of people this may be a perfect justification to buy a Leatherman, because frankly, a lot of people don't necessarily need one, but they want one, because let's face it, they are expensive. These tend to be $100 and more. This has a lot of the tools I'm recommending to maintain your EDC already on it. It has the pliers, it has the wire cutters, it has the screwdrivers, it has the precision tip screwdrivers as well, which, if I'm not mistaken, you can get other size tips for these that'll actually cover some of your Torx and Allen keys. Same thing, you have the bit kit option, which while I've not tested it, this will be able to cover some of the additional sizes we were looking at in the past already. The other thing it's going to cover, which I have not already gone into yet, is a file, which in my case, this is actually more than sufficient. The wood saw is not actually what I'm looking for here. The file in this is more than sufficient for EDC level maintenance. Now, I'm showing it as a 8-inch Nicholson file. This is great if you have a full-size shop and have other uses for it, but if you're just looking for EDC maintenance, the file that's on a Leatherman is perfect. Because the only times I've really ever needed to use a file on a EDC item is looking at my Benchmade in particular here. When I got this, the ridges on the back here were extremely sharp out of the factory, and one of the first things I did, took a file and just smoothed them off so it wasn't cutting my hand up so bad, because they were extremely sharp to the point that you actually could leave some indents on your hand and it was just not comfortable overall. So that was a perfect way to dial it back, smooth those out, and it's been perfect for the past, I think, 7 years I've been carrying this one. So if you need more excuses to buy a Leatherman, here you are. It's a perfect way to maintain your EDC. So as far as anyone's concerned, you need to buy a Leatherman if you haven't already. And if you already have, buy another one. Now, as I mentioned before, the other thing you're going to want to have is a small pair of Needlenose Pliers, which could be covered by the Leatherman. Same thing with the wire cutters. Now, this is not something you need to use all that often, but if you are trying to do some small work on a knife, flashlight, or firearm, and you need to be able to get into a small tight place, this is going to help you do that. This is a small little precision pair I have from Craftsman back when they were still made in the US, and it's worked great, and it's been able to solve most of my issues when I've needed needle-nose pliers on a knife or firearm. Now, this one you may or may not expect when you're looking at maintenance for an EDC item, and this is a small pick set. Again, this one is just a cheapo $1 Harbor Freight set, or at least half of it anyway. But having these small, fine, sharp points is great if you're trying to pick small items out of your EDC items, which again, I'm going to keep going back to the knife because that's the easiest one to show. But you can actually get in there, and if you have something stuck, if you have a burr you want to move out, a piece of debris, you can easily get in there and pry that out. Or if you are a clean freak, which I clearly am not, you can actually get inside the head screws here, the screw heads, if I can talk correctly. You can clean that out, get all the debris out of there, and help to actually clean your knife out and make it look a little better than I keep mine looking. So they're cheap, they're only $1, and it's a great thing to have, and it's one of those things you may not think of otherwise. So going back to the idea of cleaning and maintenance is going to be a decent set of a cleaning kit for your firearms as well as a cleaner. So I'm not going to recommend a specific brand on either one of these. I will say I particularly am using the Hops Elites cleaner right now. It works fine, no complaints. It's not going to be great if you're using a lot of old corrosive ammo. I do recommend something a little stronger. I believe they made this stuff to be a lower odor. I do have some other stuff I use when I am shooting corrosive ammo. Same thing with the cleaning kit. I'm not going to recommend a specific one. This is just a small set I pulled out for easy use of showing. But make sure you have enough sizes to cover all the firearms you have and carry. And I do recommend about this that it is the cable style that you pull through the barrel as opposed to the old school brass rods, because I've seen too many people destroy the rifling on their barrels when they're rubbing the inside of that cleaning kit across the rifling. Now, it's not going to be the brass that's the issue, it's going to be the metal and steel that's attached to that that's going to be scraping up your barrel. So be aware of that, make sure you take that into consideration when you are buying a new cleaning kit, and make sure it is sized appropriately for whatever you are cleaning. And frankly, I'd go a little bit above and beyond that because you're probably going to buy more in the future. Next up, if you're a knife guy, you're going to need some form of a sharpening set. Again, this is a DMT diamond stone, so you do have the fine, medium, and coarse. I don't recommend a specific one. This is just the one I personally prefer. And to go with that, you are also going to need a leather strop. And this is one area you can definitely cheap out a bit because this one is just something I threw together. All it is a piece of scrap oak along with some rubber cement and then a piece of leather glued on top of it. Now I did the rough side up on this particular one. I have another one that I use that is the smooth side up. Depending on how coarse or fine of an edge you're trying to go for, you will determine which one you want to go with. For a rough initial polish, I like to go with the rough side up and then finish it out with the smooth side. In both cases though, I do use a stropping compound, which you can get pretty cheap on Amazon, and it's essentially just a chalky material that you rub onto the leather and then use that to strop your knife across and actually allow you to get a more refined edge, and that's how you're going to be able to get a little closer to that mirror polish that everyone's looking for. Now with that said, you do need to have a really good starting edge before you get to the point of stropping to be able to get that to happen. But you don't need to go too crazy. I know the DMT Diamond Stones are a pretty expensive set. I think these were over $100. But you can go something much cheaper. It really depends on how serious you are about sharpening and how you are about making sure you have a extremely scary sharp knife. Now on the point of scary sharp, when you're working with knives a lot, you're going to cut yourself. So, super glue. Some people prefer Band-Aids, some people prefer electrical tape. Me personally, I like super glue. Glue the cut shut. This is not officially recommended medical advice. Use at your own caution. For me, it's worked great. And then when you are working with high carbon steel, one thing you want to be aware of is that it is going to rust if you're not careful, if it's in any type of moist environment. In my case, I like to use Chapstick on my high carbon steel knives. The reason being is it's extremely easy to carry around, work with. You can literally just wipe it across the blade and you're all set to go. Doesn't leave much of a residue there, but it does keep it from rusting. And the good thing is if you do end up cutting food with it, it's not really something you need to worry about ingesting because, let's face it, you put it on your lips in the first place. Now this is going to be one of the final ones we're looking at that's going to be pretty much everyone needing for EDC maintenance, and that's going to be Loctite. Now this is going to be great because at the end of the day, if you're going to be working with your knives a lot, taking them apart, and you want them to stay where you actually have them put, and you don't want your screws to back out, a good bottle of blue Loctite that's not the permanent red is going to be great to help that from happening. Alright, quick battery change and we're back. So now we're looking at some of the options for people that are going to be a little more involved in their maintenance, going to be a little more in-depth in how much they're taking this stuff apart. And that's when you start getting into some options for actually taking your guns apart, and that's going to be a good set of punches along with a hammer and a punch block. Now again, you have a few options with all these. I'm just using these ones as a demonstration purpose. So a small hammer is all you really need. If you don't need to have specifically a ball peen, you can get away with a claw hammer or whatever you have really, because all you're doing for this is just going to be using it to lightly tap through a punch and knock out a pin on whatever firearm you're working with. Now when you are doing that, you're going to want to have some type of a punch block which allows you to punch the pin through the hole, and it'll actually drop out at the bottom rather than binding up on a workbench that you're working off of. You can get these pretty cheap. They're usually probably 10, 12 bucks on Amazon. However, if you're looking to stay cheap, you can actually make your own out of a piece of 2x4. All I did for this one was took two pieces of 2x4, clamped them together, drilled a hole down the center, pulled them apart, drilled another hole through where I wanted the punch hole to be, and it cost me nothing. Just other than a couple pieces of wood scraps that I already had laying around. So that's one way to do it. Your mileage may vary. As far as the punches go, you have a few options. I'm showing a set of Starretts here, which, again, this is going to be a lot more for the serious user. These are going to be fairly expensive, so you don't necessarily have to go with these if you're just going for a light use. You're occasionally using it once a year. At that point, you can go with the cheap set that you get off Amazon, Harbor Freight, whatever it may be. Same thing holds true with the hammer. You don't need to go with anything specific. This is just the one I'm using for demonstration, and frankly, buy them used, buy them at estate sales, flea markets, yard sales, whatever it may be. They don't need to cost you much. Now, if you're looking to get more into things like building up AR lowers and you're actually looking to do more in-depth work, at that point you may want to move into something like a roll pin punch set in addition to your punch set. Now this, if I can get this to focus here, you'll notice has a ball on the end there, and that allows this to fit inside of a roll pin such as those on an AR and only hit with the edge there. So that allows you to not mush over the edge and actually get a straight hit when you are using that for your build. So this is again going to be for a more in-depth user that's a little more than just your maintenance. So something to keep in mind as you get a little more into this if you are looking to go that route. Then a lot of them do come with a nice little carry case, so you actually can get them all contained. Works very well. And if I haven't mentioned this already, this one's pretty straightforward, but some form of a cleaning product. So this one, again, I'm choosing to use as a representation for, say, Windex, paper towels, something just to clean your stuff up. It doesn't need to be anything crazy, nothing special. You probably already have this sitting in your kitchen in the first place, but have a way to clean your knife, because if you're anything like mine, you'll probably notice they get dirty pretty quick, and I have not cleaned this one in a while. I got all sorts of junk on the side here. A good cleaning would do this thing well. So have a way to clean your knives. Now, the final thing here is you're going to have some options. Now, if you have a dedicated workbench, something like I'm working off here, when you can bolt something down, you're going to want a full-size vise, which this one I'm in the process of restoring, so it is not mounted down yet. This is actually a secondary one I'm working on. 4.5-inch Colombian. You do not need something this big if you're just looking to maintain your stuff. If you're living at home, you're living in an apartment, somewhere you don't have access to a full-size workbench. This is just your option if you have a real workshop. Most people watching this probably don't. So, at that point, you can go with something nice and easy. Got this off Amazon, very cheap. All this does is it's a giant suction cup on the bottom. It probably won't work on this work surface because it is fairly porous with the plywood surface. But if you have a countertop in your kitchen, flip this lever, locks it down, and it becomes a fairly stable work surface, and you can tighten this up, lock it in place, and you have a small vise to work off of. Now, this is perfect if you're just working for occasional builds, maybe you're putting a lower together, or you just want to keep your stuff stable. Maybe in my case, you want to actually be using it for putting a pocket knife in here or a fixed blade, clamp it in place with the vise, and then use that file to run across the spine and smooth it out so you can actually use it with a ferro rod. Perfect example of when you'd want to have this. The trick to this, though, is making sure you do have a set of soft jaws. Now, all this is in this case is a piece of rubber that will go over the jaw of the vise to make sure you're not marring up the finish. Because if you do clamp this down firmly with the metal jaws, there's a good chance you're going to scratch up whatever you're working on, leave some marks, and frankly, no one wants that. Ideally, this is not the vise you want to go with. This is going to be if you don't have a lot of use for it, if you're only using this occasionally, and you're working out of whether it be a kitchen or an apartment, something like that, where you can't have a permanent vise mounted. Otherwise, go with a full-size bench vise. That's ideally an older one made in the US, because most of the stuff that you're seeing that are overseas made today are not that well made, and that includes this one. So if you're looking for heavy use, go old US. If you're looking for just light duty use, something like this suction cup model is perfectly fine. And then the last thing that goes for all of this is a box to store it in. Now, there's not a whole lot here. It's fairly small overall. This one I need to move around a little bit to make sure it closes, but all that in there, this closes up perfectly fine. This is one of the MTM ammo crates, and all that, you're looking maybe 10 pounds of tools. Now, the big thing is here, there's two reasons to go with this. Not necessarily this box in particular, any toolbox will do, any bag will do for that matter. But all you want to make sure is you have a way to cohesively combine all of your stuff into one place. You know exactly where it is, and if you have a need to, you can lock it up tight. If you want to bring it somewhere, help out one of your friends, you have all your stuff ready to go. I would do recommend keeping the caps to your oil if you do go this route, because frankly that's going to spray everywhere. Personally, I don't use a box like this to carry all my stuff around in, because I do have a full workshop where I'm working out of. Everything has its own dedicated place in the first place. But if you're not working in a full-size workshop, this is a great way to go. And for the size and price, these MTM crates are going to be a great option for you. Either that, go to Home Depot, go to Lowe's, pick up the cheapest plastic toolbox you can find, make sure it fits everything you want, and you'll be in good shape. So, tell me what do you guys use, what do you guys think of this, and is there anything you guys see a main use for maintaining your EDC that I have not mentioned here that maybe I need to add to this list? So put in the comment section below, what did I forget, what do you guys use, and what did you not think of that I added? And as always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.